Are you a business looking for a fresh new way to reach potential customers? Well, you need to get airtime on IT TV, a 24/7 streaming and on-demand TV service online and on Roku. With Roku having a potential reach of 62 million people, it's a perfect opportunity to reach potential customers through affordable commercial and infomercial spots. Visit us online today at itnetwork.tv.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie. Thank you for tuning in to the Roundtable Talk Show. And guess what? It's Friday. It's Friday's episode, and I didn't tell our guests. I usually let them know backstage, but today, for some reason, I forgot. Or maybe I just omitted that information. But I usually let our guests know there are two shows you do not want to be on. That's our Monday show and our Friday show. Mondays, I've had way too much sleep. Fridays, I haven't had enough sleep, so only the good Lord knows what I'm going to say, what I'm going to ask, and where we're going to go. But I do guarantee it's going to be fun. We're going to laugh. We're going to learn. So definitely want to tune in to the show. But most importantly, there's someone in your network who needs this information. Maybe they're a new entrepreneur. Maybe they're just starting out their business and they want to learn from the experts. And that's what we do here on the Roundtable Talk Show. We learn from the experts. So go ahead and make that post, make that tweet, send that text, whatever you need to do. Go wake somebody up and let them know the Roundtable Talk Show is live. Because as I always say, friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. So while you're introducing your network to the show, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest, Miss Stephanie Long. Stephanie has over a decade of experience in her industry. She has founded Stephanie Marie Marketing as she saw a huge need for SEO services. Good morning, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm excited to have you here, excited to learn from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Yeah, so I live right outside the Seattle area. I have been in marketing / SEO for about 10 years, but I always have saw a need for SEO services. And I believe that you can only really truly be an expert if you do one thing. And so instead of doing everything in marketing, I decided to focus specifically on SEO because that is such a huge need in the industry. And I can just really hone in on a customer's website and rankings. And I absolutely love SEO. So it's my favorite thing to do in marketing. I'm really, really passionate outside of this about the outdoors. I love skiing, snowboarding, running, anything to do with any outdoor exercise. So that's my big passion in life outside of my business.
Oh, I love hearing about SEO. I'm passionate about SEO, marketing, the same thing. But I have to tell you, Stephanie, we could not hang out because you lost me at running. Okay, I'm telling you that the snowboarding, the skiing. I'm like, Stephanie, I'm good at taking naps. Like I'm an expert napper.
I'm training for a half marathon next year, so I got to up my running game.
No. We'll talk a little bit more about it, Stephanie. I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, and we'll see, how he feels about running and snowboarding later. But it's Mr. James Hipkin. Since 2010, James Hipkin has built his clients' businesses with digital marketing. Today, James is passionate about websites and helping the rest of us understand online marketing. His customers value his jargon-free, common sense approach. Good morning, James. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifah. How are you?
I'm excited to learn more about your jargon-free approach.
Well, it's so much top spin and noise goes on in digital marketing, and people want to use it, but they don't. They get overwhelmed by all of the clutter that floats around.
Okay. Well, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Well, let me start with a question.
Ooh.
Are you a 6-figure business that wants to be a 7-figure business? Do you know that your website needs to be upgraded, but don't know where to start? Do you cringe in your mind when someone asks you about your website or your website's address? Well, that's where I come in. I have a solution. I'm James Hipkin. I own Innately. It's a business website subscription service. I also own Red 8 Interactive, where we build large custom websites for corporations, which is a roundabout way of saying we actually know what we're doing. So if you're looking for some knowledgeable resources that can help you with your website, I'd be a great person to talk to. I have a quick story about a goldfish, Sharifah, if I may.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It's rumored that a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. It's a myth, but myth or not, practically speaking, you have about 6 seconds or less to establish a connection with a website visitor. Your website needs to do a lot of things in 6 seconds. It needs to assure the visitor that they are in the right place. It needs to give them a benefit-oriented reason to stay, and it needs to make their path clear. What should they do next? Yeah, but there's more. It also needs to overcome obstacles. It needs to build trust. All of this in 6 seconds or less. And keep in mind, the time it takes the page to load is part of the 6 seconds. Cheap and cheerful hosting really isn't cheap. It's costing you precious time. So can your website do this? Can your website engage qualified visitors in 6 seconds or less? Most can't. And today, with the rapid shift in online and virtual meetings and events, it's more important than ever that your website is working hard for you. If you'd like a 6 seconds or less website audit, go to 6secondsorless.com and book some time with me. I'd love to help you. That's my passion, Sharifah. I really still to this day am passionate about helping my clients be successful using marketing.
Wow, that was a lot, James. Not a lot of conversation, but a lot of information in the introduction. A lot of times people include all that information, the contact, the audit, and the takeaway. You hit us right at the front of what you do. But, and I was going to ask the question, okay, but what are you passionate about? But it seems to me, like you said, you are passionate about marketing. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, James, but I just want to go ahead and introduce.
Can I interrupt? I have an interesting thing. So, James, I actually tell my clients 5 seconds or less. So that's interesting that you do 6 seconds. So I'm always like, you need to hit them within 5 seconds. So we're a second off on that.
I used to say 5 seconds or less too, but there was a famous coach who wrote a book called 5 Seconds or Less. And so I had to shift it a little. I also have a blog post called 6 Tips to keep your visitors in 6 seconds or less. So it's a bit of an alliteration as well.
Yeah.
This is a Friday show. You can tell when this is a Friday show, when it just goes in a whole different direction. And then I have to go in and referee and bring it back because we're starting the conversation and we can't leave out Jeff. I'm pretty sure Jeff wants to add to the conversation as well. Mr. Jeff.
Hi, Sharifah and fellow guests. Good to be with you. So I'm sort of on a different stage of life than my fellow guests here because I became financially independent at age 40 from a successful practice in law and some good investments. Retired completely from the law at 55 and have been retired from daily business work for the last 10 years. But I have a number of passions, which after being released from going to the office every day, I've been allowed to follow. I lead trekking and mountaineering groups over in the Nepal Himalayas. I've written a number of books. My wife and I started our own publishing company called Midsummer Books because we got a bit aggravated with agents and publishers. So we decided to just do it all ourselves. And I teach an occasional course at Butler University here in Indianapolis about philanthropy and how to do philanthropy right. I am the president of a foundation that works over in Nepal, building infrastructure for small rural villages, and I serve on currently 6 nonprofit boards. So philanthropy has become a passion, as is trekking and mountain climbing, and most recently playing pickleball.
We'll talk a little bit about pickleball, because I just learned what pickleball was prior to the show. Never heard of pickleball, but it's interesting. So, Stephanie, are you going to go hang out with Jeff in the Himalayas and do some?
I would absolutely love to. That sounds amazing.
Well, Stephanie, since you're a serious runner, you would have no problem with the physical fitness requirements. So come join me. When Nepal opens up again, unfortunately, at least until next spring, tourists are not really welcome. They've had a rough time with COVID. But we have trekking groups scheduled for next spring, so join up.
Yeah, I'm working on getting my breathing more so I can hold more oxygen, so I can run longer.
Wow. Now, you mentioned the 5 seconds, 6 seconds, or less. 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds. Let's just split the baby. James commented on that, Stephanie. Why is that so important for you, the 5.5 seconds?
Well, people, just like on social media, have such a small attention span. As you're scrolling through ads, if it doesn't catch your eye, you're gone. So people don't have time. So if you land on a site and it's still loading, I myself, I'm off, I'm gone. So that contributes to a high bounce rate, and a high bounce rate contributes to Google knocking your rankings in their SERP, which is search engine results page. So it's a combination of a high bounce rate, and then Google wants to give their users the very best results. And if your page is like loading, which there's probably tons of different issues, which I just wrote a blog about, you got to get those fixed, or your website's not going to be served up by Google.
What are some of those other items that you mentioned in your blog?
Yeah, so caching issues, any caching issues. You want to make sure that your website is indexed. Some people on accident disallow pages. So what I recommend for SEO is Yoast, a Yoast plugin. It comes with WordPress. If any of you heard of it, it really helps you define your SEO. So it tells you, hey, you disallowed this page, so Google's not going to crawl it. So it's really easy to just uncheck that, because sometimes people accidentally check it and then Google just dismisses your page. So that's one of the big things to do. And then speed, as we just mentioned, Google has a great page speed where you can check to make sure your images aren't too high or too large, so you can compress them. That your mobile is the biggest one that has trouble loading. You think you've optimized your website for desktop, but you actually need to optimize it for mobile, because mobile is increased. 51% people now use mobile to shop versus desktop. So it's only going to be increasing, and you got to make sure your mobile website's up to speed. Because I notice a lot of mobile websites are really janky. Like they assume because desktop, it looks good on desktop, they didn't check it for mobile.
Okay, so we got to define the word janky for the people who don't understand that word. I'm just saying.
Sorry.
No, I understand janky. You know what I mean? Most people do. It just, no, this is not it. This is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not.
Yeah. I mean, on mobile, your website, your images need to be way more compressed, right? Because there's less page than your actual website. So that's a lot of the time is your images aren't loading fast enough on mobile. And so I like to use a tool called Screaming Frog. It shows you exactly what images you need to compress. And then you can go in and either remove them if you can't compress them, or compress them for mobile.
A lot of great information. James, you listening to Stephanie? What are your thoughts?
I'm sorry, you're asking me?
I'm asking James.
Yeah, everything she said, and more, so much more. Page load speed is extremely important, but there's a concept we use in marketing called PASS. What's the problem? Agitate the problem, and then solve the problem. If you can do those three things more or less immediately in a manner that people can scan, you're going to engage your audience. Then you need to build trust, overcome objections, and there's lots of ways to do those things. But the job number one, above the fold,
Mm-hmm.
get them engaged, not by talking about yourself, but by presenting a problem that your target prospect can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And then put some urgency behind that problem, agitate it a bit, highlight the risks if they don't take action. There's lots of ways to do that. And then present, we have a solution. And then finally make their path clear so that what should they do next? One of the common mistakes made with websites that is putting like 6, 7, 8 different things into the primary navigation. We strongly encourage our folks, our customers and clients, to limit the primary navigation to no more than 4 things, ideally 3 things, because you've only got a very limited amount of time, and folks need to be able to just scan it and know what their path is.
Let me ask you a question, James, because you just confused me. I was lost. And when I get lost easily, by the way. So when you say 3, 4, 5 different things in the navigation, are you referring to the tabs more, only 3 different tabs, or are you referring to different types of products or different types of services?
No, I'm referring to the tabs. You call them tabs, yes. 4 maximum, 3 ideally.
So you mean like, okay, from the home page to the contact us, and then there are 3 different inner pages that are on the website.
Well, you can have more pages than 3 on the website. I'm just talking about the navigation.
I call them the headers. Maybe that helps a little bit. The headers on the website.
Yep. The header is where the navigation lives.
Yeah.
And there's two levels of navigations. Primary navigation, which usually is bigger, usually sits more prominently. And then there's the secondary navigation, which is usually smaller and often embedded right at the very top in the upper right-hand corner. So your primary navigation is how your prospects have a path that they can follow to get to the content that they want. And if you can get that click, if you can get them into the next page, then you've engaged them and you're going to get past the 6 seconds or 5 seconds and, end up with a value, creating value for your visitors. And Google loves that.
Yeah. And like page per session. So then they're going to continue, and you hope to at least get 2 pages. It's great. But if you get like 1.5 pages, you've made a successful customer or client, whatever you want to call it, Google Analytics.
And there's another thing. Stephanie talked about bounce rate, and I'd love to get Stephanie's opinion on this, because I hear this talked about in Clubhouse and places like this frequently. People rail on about, high bounce rate is bad. One must have a low bounce. But when I look at pages on the over 100 sites that we host and manage, the highest ranked pages typically also have a fairly high bounce rate, but they have a much higher than average dwell time. People are spending more, and Google sees that. And if they see a page that with a high dwell time and a high bounce rate, that tells them that the audience has found the content they were looking for. This is valuable content. That page will get up ranked. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah,
Stephanie?
I agree with you. For instance, what I consider high bounce rate an issue is if it's over 90% and they're on there for like a few seconds. We need to reevaluate that page. 80%, 70%, anything over 40 to 90% is good. That's fine.
And the dwell time is the other. Everything in life is a teeter-totter, right? It's all about balance.
Yeah.
And keeping the different things in perspective. And marketing's not that complicated. It's just pick a few key things that you want to focus on and do them really well.
We got to focus. That's why we brought in Jeff, because Jeff has to teach us how do you retire and have financial freedom at 40. That sounds like a book. Have you written that book? Financial Freedom at 40.
No, I haven't written that book. I've just tried to live it.
How do you do that? How do you do that, Jeff?
Well, you really started this conversation off asking about what we were passionate about, and it's been interesting to listen to my fellow guests because they're obviously truly passionate about their business, about what they're offering to their clients, and that was what. At least one of the driving forces of, I think, what made me successful in practicing law. I really cared about doing good work for my clients. And in law, although there's advertising now, unfortunately, but when I was first starting to practice, it was actually illegal for lawyers to advertise beyond the yellow pages in Indiana. Excuse me. So advertising was all by word of mouth. And although word of mouth has now spread through social media, still word of mouth that you do a good job for your customers, your clients, is what will lead to success. And so, having that passion for doing it right in whatever career, I think is, one of the key pillars for success. So, yeah, I mean, I could talk for the rest of the show about, what worked for me in more specific ways, but in generality, I think you hit on it when you open the show.
Stephanie,
I wrote a blog about why lawyers need advertising or SEO. So that's kind of funny you said that.
Yeah. Do share.
Yeah. Well, I'm, since I'm, long out of the legal game now and happy to be doing other things, I have a website where I probably violate every single piece of advice the two of you have given because it promotes my philanthropic projects, the trekking groups that I lead, our Midsummer Books publishing company, the different books I've written. So it's kind of a mess. And so I would no doubt benefit from working with either or both of you, but it's fascinating to listen to the two of you who know so much more about something that I do and use every day, and yet I've just sort of stumbled along. And because thankfully I'm not financially dependent on selling books or on people signing up to go on trekking expeditions with me, I've been pretty casual about it. But yeah, listening to you, and I'm picturing my website
I was picturing your website
all the ways I violated your advice.
Right. I was picturing your website too, Jeff. So I was like, I had to just take another look at your website. And like you said, you just did what you wanted to do. You don't even have a navigation, which is interesting. Not 2, 3, 5, nothing. But I just am so curious. Chasing angels or fleeing demons?
Well, yeah. I mean, the reason I first went to Nepal and trekked the Mount Everest base camp was because at age 40, I began to feel sort of lost, was manifesting typical midlife crisis symptoms because I had achieved professionally, what I had sought out to. And so, there's that sense of, okay, so now what? Is that all there is? And so one day I came home from the office and my wife slapped a brochure down on the table in front of me, and it was to join a trekking group and trek the Mount Everest base camp. So I went off and did that, and that set me off in a whole new direction in life, because that led to me eventually becoming a mountaineer, and then a trekking and mountaineering group leader, and then writing books about it, and then starting a foundation in Nepal. And so, that lovely thing that my wife did for me that one day sent me off in all these different delightful directions.
Well, bless her heart. I tell you, you guys, Stephanie, James, I'm telling you, when you get a moment, you definitely have to check out Jeff's website, because you'll see what I mean. It's just one page, lots of colors. It's just beautiful information on there, a lot of information on there. But I was distracted by the whole chasing angels. What is it? Chasing angels or flying demons.
Chasing angels or fleeing demons. Go to the mountains.
Go to the mountains.
I can relate to that. You inspired me. I need to go to Nepal now. I've started rock climbing, so I need to go to Nepal. You've definitely inspired that, because I'm in my 30s and I felt like I was going nowhere in my life. So that's when I started my company a couple of years ago, because I just wanted to find direction in my life, and I've always wanted to work for myself. So I guess you could call it a mid-30 life crisis. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah.
But you use it as an inspiration to begin your business. I think that's the most beautiful thing. What was that process like for you, Stephanie, to start your own business? Like you said, in your mid-30s, to go in a different direction, the decision not to work for anyone else. Was that easy for you? What was the response from people around you?
Here's the one thing I can say. So my first job out of college was doing SEO. And funny enough, I hated it. I thought it was awful and hard and terrible. And then the next job I got, I needed to do SEO. And then I just started learning. And then upon that, I learned how to code. But I definitely can't build a website like James, so I would never take business from you. I can build my own websites, but I would never take on a website. So then I just started teaching myself and taking classes, and I just became to love it because it's so technical. And you can see the results aren't instantaneous. James would probably agree with me. It's a 3 to 6 month process, but I love it. I've been consulting out of those 10 years, probably 8. I'll tell you what the hardest thing was: to actually make my website live, because now you're essentially exposing yourself to the world for them to make negative comments about you, say you're not doing things right. Even coming on the show and giving my opinion, people aren't going to always agree. So it's really just putting yourself out in the world. And the best advice I got that I did not take at the time was just put it up there. Nobody's going to see the mistakes you see. And I didn't take that advice at that time, but I always remembered it, and it was just now or never. And so I just, a couple of years ago, published it. And there always are little things, not mistakes per se, but there's always little updates I can do. And I do those almost every day. But
that's such an important thing. I counsel folks all the time on that. Mm-hmm. A website's a dynamic thing.
Yeah.
It's going to change constantly. And nobody and nothing is perfect. Well, my wife is perfect, but nobody else is perfect. And no website is perfect. It can always be better. And what's better today, circumstances are going to change. And it's always about the progression. And I loved what Stephanie said, because it's that reflects so well on people's personal journeys, but also a business has a journey as well. And
I like that. That's one way to just end a comment. Just but on that note, we're going to stop for a brief commercial break, and we will be right back.
You need jordansrooter.com. Get free estimates, 24-hour service, special discounts for seniors and veterans. That's jordansrooter.com. Have a home repair or some remodeling you need done? No problem. We can handle all that too. Give us a call today at 800-300-0358. At Jordan's Rooter, we take pride in our work and always make sure to get the job done right the first time. That's jordansrooter.com. We want to be your Mr. Fix-It.
I've had this problem.
Big problem.
I really needed
A good business consultant.
And I kept searching.
and searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list.
But I finally did it.
Yes. Thank you.
If you are looking for one as well,
Look no further.
Here's a really good one.
Just use mine.
Use mine.
I'm very satisfied.
Definitely recommend.
Problem gone.
Thank you.
Yes, if you are just now tuning in to the Roundtable Talk Show, we learned a lot of information. So if you missed any aspect of it, you definitely want to watch this show from the beginning in the archives, because you may be able to improve your website, make the images load faster, make your website load faster, put some content at the top of your website to let people know who you are and what they should expect from the website. James and Stephanie have been giving us so many tips on how to do that, as well as Jeff teaching us how to make a website that's the way I want it. Doesn't have to agree with any other laws on the internet, but hey, it's my website and I can have it however I want, because people are different. And one of the things while everyone was talking, I was checking out the different websites. And what I noticed is that James and Stephanie's websites are very similar, and Jeff's is different. And then my website is different from James and Stephanie's and Jeff's. I have a whole bunch of links on the navigation, because for me, and when I work with different people, the less tabs they have on the navigation, it to me appears to be a newer website. And so I'm like, let's flesh this out. Let's bring in some content, because not everybody likes apples. Not everybody likes oranges. So let's provide them with different information. So that's a different take on it. Wouldn't you say, James?
Yes, that would be a good word.
I like that word.
I don't agree with the take, but
Yes.
it's so much about marketing. Is an old guy, David Ogilvy, one of the founders of modern advertising, and no, I'm not old enough to have worked with him, said the essence of strategy is sacrifice.
Mm.
And a website's a utility. It needs to create mutual value. It needs to create value for the folks who are visiting the website, and it needs to create value for the business. And oftentimes that means making some hard decisions about who are your prime prospects, who are your best customers, and finding ways to serve them will often mean that you're going to leave some other people aside. But at the end of the day, you're trying to build relationships with the folks that where you can make the most difference to their lives, and they can make the most difference to your life. So that's where one of the sort of strategic sides of the 6 seconds or less concept is this concept of who are your best customers and what is the problem that they're trying to solve. Jeff brought up a very interesting thing about word of mouth, and social media is an extension, particularly organic social media is an extension of word of mouth. I hear this conversation all the time from professional services organizations, lawyers, doctors, healthcare, health and wellness, all these professional services sectors. Well, I get all my business from word of mouth, so I don't really need a website. But the reality is a website functions in that world as a device for confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
People go to the website to confirm that this person that they've heard about is a legitimate choice for them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they go to a website that looks like it was built in the 1990s, they'll bounce. You won't see them. And that's the thing with professional services folks when they say, well, I don't get any leads from my website. Well, you don't see the null set. You don't see all the people who heard about you, went to your website, were disappointed, and never contacted you.
That's an interesting point that you made, James, because in the professional services, I've never heard that, or can't think of that many people who probably would think that way. But it's interesting. It's always, to me, the younger people who feel that Instagram is enough. That's the one thing that I've always heard. I don't need a website because I could just Instagram. I could just post on Instagram. I only use Instagram. I get my business from Instagram. And I think, to me, it's the younger from my experience, it's been the younger people who feel like websites are outdated. That's something that we used to do, and I don't need one.
Yeah,
They're not the decision makers though that are trolling Instagram. So I would say that's an inaccurate comment from.
Yeah, and they're also building their business on rented land.
Mm-hmm.
The folks at Facebook can and do change the rules on a regular basis, and they don't consult with you. And if you're building your business on rented land, that's a really shaky foundation.
Yeah. So in your experience, have you had that question or that statement made to you that, oh, I only focus on Facebook, oh, I only focus on Instagram, I don't need a website?
Often.
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, but look at the people who are really successful in your category. Look at the people who are, generating high six-figure incomes, 7-figure incomes. They're not dependent on rental space. They own their website. They own their list. The list is so important. Mm-hmm. I talk about the hub and spoke strategy a lot with folks to get them to understand how the power comes from the connection, right? If you've got a bicycle hub and a bunch of spokes and a rim, just individually, they're nice, but they don't have much value. When you put them together, when you connect them together, you create the wheel, which is one of the most fundamental inventions in the evolution of mankind. It's that connection that makes the power. But you don't want to be having that connection against a platform that somebody else owns.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Jeff, do you?
Yeah, I was just going to add that another spoke would be your email list.
The list is king.
Yeah. I mean, again, my website is built almost more as just an artistic expression. I put up what I want to put up, and I would love for more people to visit and click on links and respond to invitations that are on there. But because I'm not financially independent, I care more about just my own joy in adding to it. But the spokes in a wheel in terms of what I do, the way I do try to market, particularly a book. If I just had a book published, I try to use social media, my email list, but the way I would personally bring somebody to buy a book of mine would be either through my website, come to my website where you can buy the book directly, or go to Amazon, like most everybody else who's who's selling any products these days. But yeah, I don't think it's just I don't think there's just one spoke. I think that's a nice metaphor, and all those different spokes are a way to make a comprehensive presentation of your product or your service.
Right, and it's the rim that keeps it all together, and because the rim is your messaging and content strategy. It's being consistent about what you're saying to folks, being consistent about the messaging that you're delivering, regardless of the spoke you're using. And when they get back to the website needs to be consistent with their expectations, because one of the first things that people want to see after the page has loaded is, am I in the right place? So, and if the branding and the colors and the fonts and the language and the presentation on the website are entirely different from what they saw in social media, they're going to bounce, because it's like, oh, this isn't where I want to be.
Yes.
And they don't think, and it's an instinctive reaction. It's not something they put a lot of intellectual thought into. We're talking 6 seconds or less. So that am I in the right place aspect of things is after the pages load, that's job number one.
Jeff, you brought up something that reminded me. You were talking about your links. I think another thing also with SEO is you want to have a decent amount of internal links. So make sure that you have a keyword you can highlight in your text that will link to another page, but that it's relevant, right? You just don't want to do internal links all over your website. But it is good to have internal links, but also external links. And a lot of things I see my clients do on external links is they don't have that link open in a new tab. So you're taking someone away from your page by just having them click on that link and going to, like for instance, Jeff, maybe you have them click on the Amazon link to your book. So you've taken them away from your website, and you never want to do that. So I would recommend you do some sort of landing page to make sure that they can get back to your website and still looks branded as your website. So that's another thing I recommend clients do.
No, that's a good point. I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff. But that's an excellent point, Stephanie, because one of my biggest pet peeves is people who open their internal links in new windows. Like that drives me crazy when people do that. You know,
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Why are you
Please
doing
don't do that.
But people do that, and that's like so annoying to me.
You're
so now
still on the website. It's
right.
fine.
10 pages open in different tabs, all for the same window. I'm like, that is so annoying.
No, you don't do that.
No.
Yeah. Just the external links. You don't want them away from your page.
Yes. Jeff, you were going to say something when I
I was just going to say, I hope if they went from my website to a link to my book on Amazon, they would buy it, and then I don't care if they come back.
Okay, well, that's an interesting statement.
But actually, I hope that they might remember to click that arrow that goes the other direction to then just come back. You don't want to make an
assumption that they're going to do that. You want them to come back to your page. That's why I say open in a new tab for Amazon.
Yep. And another thing is that the most important sale is not the first sale. It's the second sale. Because if you can get them to buy from you twice, the chances that they'll buy from you a third time are massively increased. So it's having that plan. How do I get people to buy once? Now what? They're engaged with me. They're interested. Their interest is high. They're open. How do I build the relationship with them and create that situation so that they'll want to come back? They'll start thinking of you as an expert resource in these areas.
Right. And that's where the nurture comes in. I don't do this for clients' email marketing, but that's what I do then. I start nurturing them based off of their interests in me and what I can offer them through that funnel in email marketing.
Jeff said, I don't care if they come back. I like Jeff. Jeff a rich man. You can tell rich people. Rich people, I don't even need any more money. So they come back. I don't care.
I need some money, so I need them to come back to me. So I'm frank about that. Please come back.
No, I would like them to come back. And interestingly, we haven't really talked much about building a network. I mean, we've sort of alluded to it, but in this foundation that I'm the president of, I mean, it's a 501c3 corporation, but it started with just friends that had gone trekking or climbing in the Himalayas, and me saying, by email, because they live all over the country, and some in South Africa, emailing and saying, why don't we start working together instead of just doing our own different things? And that evolved into this foundation, which the way it raises money is through that original group of friends, each of whom has a network, and each of their people in their network out. And so we've had multiple fundraising projects, met and exceeded every single fundraising goal we've had, but it is all just through that magic of networks creating more networks.
Yes, we're gonna have Jeff on as an example of when you have enough money, your website can look however it wants. You can have your windows open however you want because you already have enough money. Jeff is like our example of I don't have to follow all the rules. I have enough. James, I love to hear your comments on what Jeff had to say about networking. Though I'm teasing you, Jeff. Wait, hold on, James. I gotta come back. I'm teasing you, Jeff. I'm teasing like for real. James, I love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, network is one of my life philosophies is be nice to everyone always. It's a small world out there, and I just don't have time when I'm hiring content specialists, the folks who actually build the websites for us. Those are my two criteria are they nice and are they responsible? I can teach the rest. I can teach you how to build a website. We've got training and we've got all these resources that I can't teach nice and I can't teach responsible.
Do you do a lot of networking? That I'm specific. I love that. I love,
Yeah.
I'm not everyone would necessarily consider me a nice person, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I'm one of those nice guys finish last, but that's a whole different show.
Nice is a complex thing. I mean, you strike, I've just met you, but you strike me as a very transparent and straightforward and honest person. And that comes through in spades. And, that's a big component in this concept of nice. I don't always have to hear flowers and rainbows. But I do want people to be honest and transparent. And
yes. But everyone doesn't always consider that being nice.
I do.
You can't handle the truth.
So actually, that's how I've grown. Is from I'm honest. You ask me anything, I will tell you the total truth. And that's how I've grown. Is people have been brutally honest about my career or my website or where I'm going in my life. And how are you going to grow if somebody's not honest to you? Like if they keep telling you, "Oh, it's wonderful, and it's not wonderful," well, you're never going to grow.
That's one of my favorite words is the word no.
Yes.
I tell my customers no all the time. They'll call me up and say, I want to do this. And I'm like, really like to take your money, but that's a really bad idea. And here's why. Bang, 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 bang.
No,
and what happens with that is I end up, I've got folks, design agencies in San Francisco that I've been working with for more than 10 years. Because they know they can trust me. They know I will give them the straight story. I won't get them to do something they shouldn't do. And thus I won't let their clients do something they shouldn't do. And that pays off over and over again. Stephanie's completely right about that. It's being, and there are so many snake oil salesmen in this world.
Yes.
And particularly, sorry, Stephanie, in the
SEO, I'm already
SEO space.
I will rank you in a week. And I'm like, that is
I have probably we vet digital marketing service providers that we make available to our customers. And Stephanie, I really would like to speak with you offline when we're done.
Yes. Yeah.
I've probably talked to a dozen SEOs in the last 6-7 months. 2 of them have made it past my screen. And I'm not an expert. I know more about SEO than the average person, but I am not an expert in SEO. But I can spot the snake oil salesman so fast. And they're calm. And it's not just SEO. It's I said to one of my customers, he invited me into a meeting, and with some folks that were helping him with Facebook advertising. And at the end of the meeting, I said, Bobby, wearing a hoodie and having a dark room around you does not make you a digital marketing expert.
He had on a hoodie in the meeting in a dark room? That just screamed.
Oh, yeah. They were all very uber cool.
No,
they had the hoodies going on and they had the backlit in the dark and they were so cool. It was scary. But their knowledge was a mile wide and a millimeter deep.
Wow.
And they were making recommendations that were flat out wrong. And
No, that's interesting because I definitely agree with what you're saying, James, and what Stephanie was saying as well, because I spend a lot of time reviewing different websites and teaching people how to monetize their websites. And I have seen some of the most attractive websites where people have spent thousands of dollars on them who have not made one sale. And I have seen some websites that people would consider horrible, ugly, that sort of thing. But I can go into the back end and these websites have made millions of dollars. And then when I start teaching people about certain aspects, like you mentioned, James, above the fold, call to action, different things like that, and I give them the feedback, and people will say, well, 20 people that have viewed my website and I've asked them for feedback and everybody just said it's wonderful, it's good. I said they were being nice. You know what I mean? And this is not their profession. This is not what they do. So they weren't looking at it from a monetization customer client perspective. So I definitely agree with what you were saying.
Yeah. User experience is vital. And it's not that hard really. But this concept of outside in is something that a lot of business owners have a hard time with. They want to talk about themselves, and but that's, with all respect, they don't care. They need a solution to their problem, and if you can give them the solution to their problem, you can communicate that you understand the problem, and then you can present, I have a solution. Then you can use your features and attributes as part of your reason to believe. Builds trust and relationship. But it's that hierarchy of communication is very, very important. What's the problem? What's the solution? And then why should I believe you?
I definitely agree. This has been a very interesting show. We are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Stephanie.
Well, thank you for listening to everything. I hope I gave you some great tips and tricks for SEO. I always offer free consultations, 30 to 60 minutes, depending on what you are looking for. I have a Calendly link in my website. But what I'm actually going to go above and beyond is I'm going to offer a free website audit to one listener that emails Sharif, and she is going to pick the winner and send it to me, and I will do a free website audit for you. So I really hope that will help bring your traffic up, or you can see what you need to improve on. If you need to hire an SEO expert or redo your website in general. So please go check out. It's StephanieMarieMarketing.com, all one word.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie. James, what do you have for the people?
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for having me on the show. It's been a delight, and I've enjoyed the conversation. I can't believe the time has gone by already. It's been a very good conversation, and I want to say thank you for that. If folks have appreciated what I've had to say about digital marketing and websites and how the different pieces interact with each other and how important that is, if they're a 6-figure business striving to be a 7-figure business and are real serious about upping their game, the great way to start is with a 6-second audit. And if you go to 6secondsorless.com, you can book a free session with me, and we'll go through your website and have a conversation about what you're trying to accomplish and how your various bits and pieces of digital marketing can really contribute, and how to maximize the impact that they'll have and make your marketing powerful and effective. So 6 seconds or less and .com, and love to hear from you. Love to share my thoughts on your website.
Absolutely. 6 seconds or less. Thank you, James. Jeff, what do you have for the people?
Thank you, Sharifah, for having me, and thank you to my fellow guests. It has been really interesting listening to the two of you, and what I have to offer your listeners, Sharifah, is if you want to experience a website that violates all of the advice you've heard today, and it looks like it was built in the 1950s. You can check mine out. And I'm not giving away free books. So if you want to buy any of my books, we have an exclusive distribution contract with Amazon. So you'd have to click on the link and buy them there. But I am always glad to communicate at no charge with anybody who's interested in visiting the Himalayas on foot or otherwise, or if you're interested in my foundation, it's on that 1950s website. But mainly, I just want to say this has been a delightful conversation, and hope we will all meet again offline.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to connect. All you have to do, Jeff, let me tell you how to get around this. You spin a story, right? Say you was building the website in the middle of a trek up the Himalayas. See, that was a little bit of time. It was freezing. It was cold. This is what happens. Story.
That's actually half true. Plus, there's plenty of pictures where there's freezing cold glaciers and deep snow.
Yeah, just build a story. And then everybody like, oh my God, I want to see the only website that was built on a Himalayan trek. That's how you do it. That's the PR. The publicist comes out to me. I've had so much fun. This has been an interesting conversation. I truly enjoyed it. I want to thank you all for being guests on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you sharing. But the most important thing to me is that you support our guests. Our guests were here this morning to support you, to share their information, their knowledge, their expertise with you. So please support them. Their website link is in the Facebook post. Follow them on social media, reach out to them, send them a message. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed weekend.